Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. We're here to talk about what month are we living in? September? Yeah.
I had to think about it real quick.
Annotation Station's book club discussion of Katabasis by R.F. Kuang. We have thoughts. We have many thoughts, both positive and negative and neutral.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here to go in depth about them. Um, so
Correct.
how do we start these? I'm telling you, I have one note on going
Same.
on.
We are
Not
going on vibes. We are gonna have a lot to say. Um, so I feel like this is gonna be a spoiler filled review.
yeah.
But we will. I'm looking to see if we can somehow structure this with positives and then negatives, so we don't start off ranting. Because there will be rant moments for
Yes.
sure. Hi,
Hi. Welcome,
Gretchen.
welcome.
Okay.
So we should start with the premise, even though I feel like everyone on earth knows the premise of this book.
Yeah.
But in Katabasis, we follow our two main characters who are PhD students, and they're going to hell because their professor has recently, you know, left this earthly plane. And so they need to finish their PhDs though. So they go to save his ass in hell.
His crusty, dusty white ass.
And so we follow them on that journey to hell as they're trying to locate this man.
Hmm.
That's like the Sparks Notes version of what the plot of this book is.
Yes.
I'm here for the rants, but curious about the positives. Fair enough. Fair enough. Hi, Damien.
Damien.
Welcome.
Hey.
I guess we should start with our ratings before we start talking about anything in
Yes.
particular. I'm going to say that I gave this 3 stars to be generous. That's generosity on my end, but 3 stars.
No, Damien, I am not drinking wine. I'm drinking kombucha because I'm old and I need my probiotics. um, I have to give a super caveat with my rating. I gave this 4.5 stars, but I'm going to rant because I need sometimes, and I try to be as transparent as possible when I rate a book high, but I have severe criticism of it. Is this book for me was similar to the way that I felt about Three Body Problem as a series. It's super flawed. There's things about it that I feel like for me it's so ridiculous that I gave it a 4 point star off of just enjoyment. Like enjoyment because I enjoy ridiculousness. But I would not recommend this book to everybody, and if I had to take away my enjoyment of ridiculousness and give it a slightly more objective rating, I would probably be closer to I would be a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as Damien said, also 4.5 stars, but many issues. If it wasn't RF Kwong, it would be 3. See, I understand this completely because I was a similar vibe with a different author that we read for this book club. It's like if it wasn't this author, this would be a 1. But we're trying to
Okay.
be
Yeah.
generous. And so same here. I'm like, this is a 3 to be generous. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, maybe even a 2.5. like as middle of the road as I could go.
I was being generous in finishing this book. I would have DNF instead of giving it 2 stars. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, the only reason this got finished is because I went to an author event. She wrote my name on this shit. If she hadn't, this would have been a DNF.
Same.
Okay. But she wrote my literal name on this. So this is staying on my shelves. I'm not getting rid of this. Okay. But do I have some regrets? Yeah. But that's on that.
And that's fair. I think that's fair. It's not her strongest work. It's
Yeah.
No.
Um,
And I've only read Babel. But
I've only read The Poppy War, which I remember traumatizing me, but it was incredible. So frustrated to say the least. Yes, I expected so much more. Yeah. Okay, so we said we were going to talk about positive. So I fear we've buried the lead. We should be talking positives here.
Okay, I'm gonna start off with positives. So things I enjoyed and things that I think were done well. So I enjoyed Alice as a main character, even though to me she's extremely dislikable. She's written as an unlikable main character, and to me, intentionally written that way because her flaws are what bring us to the critique of of academia.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is very much about her journey, not about her solving academia as a construct.
Yeah.
Which is why I enjoyed the ending for her. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't more that could have been done as to where does she go after this, but that's kind of not the point.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed her, following her as a character, and I enjoyed that I went from in the beginning really being like, oh my God, she's so annoying, to when we started to get more revelation about her history and her background, being like, okay, who am I fighting in defense of Alice?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say hi, Scylla. If you at any point watch this, hello. I loved Alice from page 1, from the beginning. Like Alice was probably one of my favorite things about the novel. Right there, Peter was right there. But I loved her from the beginning because I can really enjoy a character that is, what's the word I'm looking for? Like she has a lot of growing up to do. She has a lot of unlearning to do. And so I can appreciate a narrative where we're following a character that's nowhere close to perfect. And you can see why she thinks the way that she does. Because to me, that's also very important in being able to like a character that would otherwise be unlikable. Is understanding where they're coming from, why they think that way. And so I immediately felt a connection with Alice, even though I thought she was awful. I was like, she's awful. It's great. That's how I felt reading about Alice. And I feel like there's people whose criticism of this book I completely disagree with because they feel like Alice's biases are not challenged enough. And I think you're missing the point of the book if you think that. If you reach the end of Katabasis and you think to yourself, Alice is the same way she was on page 1, that is just factually incorrect. It's like, please go back and reread because you did not comprehend what you were reading. So I think Alice as a character is one of the strongest parts of this novel.
Yeah. What Alice chooses to do at the end is definitely the complete 180 of what Alice page 1 would have chosen to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Damien said, like, I love Alice as a character. As a person, I would despise her.
Oh, yeah. If we were in class together, we'd be rivals. I'm like, I can't stand this bitch.
I'm like, listen, what was this professor's name? Helen? Is that the woman that
Yes.
later other things happen? I'm like, I'm sorry, I would have been a student of Helen's. I'm like, that would have been my advisor, not this crusty ass man.
Yes. Yes. Even though we're gonna get to Helen,
Yes, we're gonna
and
get
what's
to
wrong
Helen,
with
and
Helen.
Helen has problems, but in the grand scheme of things, I would have been Camp Helen
Yes.
from
And
the
I also agree with what Nkechi wrote about in her positives. Real depiction of internalized misogyny in the 1980s. Very
yes,
Palace.
yes,
Yeah.
like that was very important to have in there. And like another part, like readers bring up is like our main character doesn't feel Asian enough, and it's like that's part of what that's intentional. She's
Mm-hmm.
in academia, she's trying to be as not other as possible. So she's
Mm-hmm.
not going to highlight these things about herself because she doesn't see them as something that should be
Mm-hmm.
heightened, highlighted, anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alice was the most interesting character in
Yeah.
the whole.
And yeah, there are characters along the way, like Elspeth, who challenge her.
Yeah. I was trying to have these people met Elspeth. Yeah. Yeah. And whether I agree or not, Helen herself too. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I have qualms with what Helen did, but she literally spat in his face, basically. So like it's not like it goes unquestioned. Um yeah.
Yeah. I will also say another positive that I did like was the integration of West and East depictions of hell in the afterlife. Because from the beginning, this book is marketed as a spin on Dante's Inferno, like traveling through the layers of hell. Alice and Peter, who is her colleague who goes with her to hell, are not there to change hell. They're moving through the space. And that's very much what Dante's Inferno is. They're just moving through the space in a way for us to illustrate what the beliefs are about what hell is. And what I liked was that in about the middle, we get the Weaver girl, who is also a deity from like Eastern culture. But then the end of the book ends with Alice's culture with King Yama and King Yama's realm, that kind of thing. So it's not just Western; it's that integration of Kuang's heritage as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that. Yeah.
So yeah. What else can I say as a positive? I'm trying to think. Okay, I'm trying to think real hard. Oh, okay. So another thing that I think was done really well, which again people are in disagreement about, is how it tackles the problems of academia. I see reviews that are like it's not really addressing the issues or not addressing them in a satisfying way, when I that's my other big thing that I actually loved about this book. I'm like, the only things I genuinely 100% loved about this book was Alice's characterization and how we tackle the issues in academia, because one of the core parts of this novel is the toxic relationship that Alice and Peter have with their advisor, with Professor Grimes. And at many points in the story, as a reader, if you have two brain cells to rub together, you can see how awful Professor Grimes is and that he's portrayed as being awful and disgusting. But our main characters are not sharing in that mentality because they have completely bought into the lies of academia, of like what a lot of people buy into in order to survive academia, because academia has a lot of challenges, especially the more you go into intersectionalities, the harder it is to thrive in academia.
Yeah.
Um
Can I add to that with the way that I think it was illustrated?
yeah.
I think one thing that showed that really well was when we get Peter's backstory and his experience with his success in Cambridge versus Alice's journey, where Alice had to work twice as hard in order to get where she was. And Peter, even without us knowing like why he was missing so many classes and why he was off campus so much, him missing and not being there was seen as a whimsical personality trait and gave him like this mysterious air that people appreciated because of the fact that he's a white man. And that's not something that Alice or any other women in academia would be privy to. So
Yeah.
like we see the different treatment from society as a whole, not just from Grimes, but from the entire institution.
Yeah. This book made me happy I didn't go get my PhD. Listen, no, my brain rot is enough that I still think about getting a PhD, but I have no plans of anytime soon doing it.
Yeah. If it was free, I'd be there already.
Frankly, yes, that's like the big point. I'm like, it's so much work, and you're paying them to torture you. Anyway, what was another thing I was going to say about the academia? Like, okay, we also get other characters challenging the main character's thoughts on specifically Professor Grimes. We get it both through like memories of Alice interacting with other characters who are like, hey, is everything okay? Are you sure? Basically about being with Professor Grimes. But we also get it like through Elspeth, who was one of Grimes's advisees, who literally ended her life because it was all misery. And she has very strong negative feelings about Professor Grimes. So it's like, I don't see how we can view Katabasis as not having a critique of academia when, again, we're going into spoilers here. Our literal conclusion is Alice being like, fuck this man. Actively choosing to annihilate this man's soul and be like, actually, you're not all that in a bag of chips. You're not all that. And leaving hell and being like, we'll figure something out about our studies, not being literally at all in any way the same way she was at the beginning of this book. So I sit here like, what else did people want?
I don't know.
What did people want out of this novel?
I think in a lot of ways, something that we are used to seeing is if we're dealing with, this would be an example of another systemic oppression, specifically in the case of misogyny, right? Because we're dealing with like Alice is part of the first class of women who are in this generation being allowed to get a PhD. And so like, I feel like something that I see a lot in the book community is it needs to, somehow the narrative has to have an answer to the system. But one, I don't think that we always necessarily need that. This to me was more of a character study and like on an individual level. But two, I personally have a qualm or a problem with an expectation that POC authors always have to have the answers to everything. But that's neither here nor there. That's where my 2 cents of why the book community is so up in arms about like whether this is actually challenging anything, when I think it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I
was gonna go somewhere else with that and I forgot.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Well, I have my last bullet point of what I enjoyed about this, and then I don't have anything else to say. So if you can't add something, I'm sorry.
I'm ready to rant. Let's go.
No, the last thing that I personally enjoyed about this novel was the relationship between Alice and Peter. I had so much fun with the two of them because they're both so smart, they're stupid. And that involves them understanding each other and the intentions the other has towards the other person, the things they've done, the things they've said, and why they've said them. I found all of that delightful. part of why my enjoyment deteriorated is because they took Peter away. I'm like, no, what I'm loving here is Peter and Alice. How are you going to take half of the equation of what I'm enjoying here? This is now I'm in hell. So like that was one of my favorite things. Because I love me a smart dumb character. I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, give me more of like I'm so book smart, but everything else I'm stupid.
High intelligence, low wisdom.
Incredible work. Incredible, delightful. I wanted more.
Yeah, I liked Peter as a character.
So that was the last thing for me that I'm like, I really loved Peter and Alice.
Yeah.
And their interactions together.
Okay. Now on to everything else. So if anyone's watching this and they don't want to hear negative things about this book, suggest you click away.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with my big one.
Go.
Who the hell is this for?
Great question.
Who the hell is this for? Because it's not dark academia. People love calling this dark academia.
No.
I'm sorry, we're in hell. Where is the academia?
Mhm.
I know we're making comparisons that hell is like a college campus, but it's still ultimately not.
Yeah.
It's not actually university. So inherently this cannot be dark academia because we are not in classrooms, we are not in the college campus, we are not in any of that shit.
Mhm.
It's also not a good descent into hell because I've never been more bored than with the way hell was presented in this novel. Hell can be so interesting, and R.F. Kuang said, I'm gonna make it boring as you can imagine. Traversing through this place is going to be a snooze fest. You're welcome. So it's also not for people who are like, ooh, hell is cool. Let's explore hell. It's also not for those people. It's not for the people who are like, oh, maybe this is a romance. It's also not
Not a romance.
for the
It's
romance girlies.
it's okay. And that's the part where it's like it's heavy on the romance tropes in like a between a quarter and to when Peter leaves, there's so many romance tropes, which is like, oh, it's a romance here. And then we get a good chunk. After Peter leaves, it's not a romance.
Yeah.
And then at the end, technically they're happily ever after, so it goes back to being a romance. And I'm like, but you can't be both.
It's like it absolutely refused to commit to either side. And I would have loved it if we had actually committed to it being a romance.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the best parts of it for me of enjoyment were when we were dealing with romance tropes, miscommunication, fake dating, all this stuff I thought was so fun and actually brought some life into the story. But then nada. So it's not a romance. It's not a for real fantasy because our magic system makes no fucking sense and we don't need to understand it anyway. We have so many pages going on and on and on about the paradoxes and about chalk and about all this nonsense and the pentagrams and all this stuff. We don't need to understand them. Us understanding that magic system does absolutely nothing for us because at the end of the day, the magic either works or it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And for the majority of the book, it doesn't. It doesn't work because they're in hell. Okay? So it's also like that. Why are we going on about this when we don't need to? It's also not for nerds because the people saying you need to do all this background reading to understand this book are incorrect. I started this book and I'm like, I was scared going in that I would have to give my entire focus to understand what was happening. I could have 50% of my attention on it and I understood what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I was not missing anything that was actually important. Nothing at all.
Yes. A big thing so here's what the marketing for this book was so bad. The marketing said, okay, when I went to Kuang's book tour, I would say a majority of the book tour was talking about paradoxes and philosophy and Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and hyperbolic spaces and math and like ancient equations. None of that shit fucking mattered. Like, yes, it's in the book, but honestly, if I was an editor, I would take it out. All we need to know is they drew a pentagram and scribbled some things. I don't need to know what the paradox is. I don't need to know what they wrote down. They know magic. Magic is underrepresented in academia. Why that even is a fucking thing doesn't matter anyway. Like, that, they made that point in the beginning and then it wasn't relevant anywhere. But like, there was, and those in between chapters where they're talking about the history of this chalk brand and this paradox, none of that mattered, because with that information in a good fantasy novel, when you have a hard magic system and you have this information, the reader should be able to apply that information to understand why characters make decisions. And nothing, nada, nothing. So like, honestly, if I was the editor, I'd be like, X chop, give me an X chop, 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 chop. Like, why?
Yeah, everything you're bringing up, agreed. Not a fan of Kuang's version of hell. Not unique. Not really engaging. Alice and Peter, I can understand the people who like find it bland, gave them nothing. I wasn't one of those people, but I can understand feeling that way.
I had to, and I remember calling you and we had this conversation at one point where we both were like, we had to take our brains and shift it to romance reader mode in order to stay locked in.
Yeah. Like the first half of this book, we had to actively be like, this is a romance, because otherwise there was nothing else to enjoy about it. And there was no other way to engage with it that would make sense. Because if you tried to engage it through a different lens, it was just like, this doesn't make sense. I can understand that
too.
I can respect it.
Yeah.
Yes, people said you had to read all these recommended books or essays or whatever. Literally, Kuang explains them. Anything you need to understand about it, she explains it. And frankly, stuff you don't need to understand, she explains it. So there really is no need to take the extra time to read and engage with those texts, because this already does it more than it was needed. It already does.
I actually feel like if I was a person who read all of these texts that are mentioned with the impression that they would be referenced in ways that were applicable or necessary to the story, and then read this, I'd be mad. I'd be mad because it made it sound like the story hinged on those things, and it didn't.
It did not. It did not. Literally so full of information that does not matter, did not affect the plot, and did not affect the characters in any significant way. And thank you for bringing this up.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing up Peter's Crohn's disease. That was mentioned in one chapter and then never the fuck again. I was so mad with the way that Kuang decided to withhold so much information about Peter as a little to fabricate tension between the characters.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what it felt like. It felt like Kuang didn't know how to build legitimate tension between these two characters that wasn't just simply withholding information from us, the reader. That's my other big point, that I feel like I would have enjoyed this novel a lot more if we had both their perspectives. As the reader, we didn't need to not know that Peter had Crohn's disease, and therefore that's why he would disappear all the fucking time, because he was in the fucking toilet fighting for his fucking life, in the fucking hospital, literally getting surgery to deal with his chronic illness. That was completely unnecessary.
Mhm.
And there was so much that was packed into that chapter that was interesting, that actually made Peter sound like a fascinating character. And it's like, and you kept that away from me for to what end?
Mhm.
To what end? Just for a little bit of tension? No. If anything, you just by doing that, she just that's actually the part of the novel that often pissed me off when it came to Alice. I'm like, there is so much that just doesn't make sense because we're in Alice's point of view and she doesn't know jack shit of what's going on with Peter. And I'm like, the narrative is making me want to hate Peter, even though I know for a fact there's going to be a reason why this is happening.
Mhm.
That therefore is not genuinely Peter's fault. So I'm like, stop trying to make me hate Peter. Stop trying to make it happen because I know you're just trying to do a gotcha on me.
Mhm.
Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, it's a because they were in hell for about a week, I think, by the end
Yeah.
of the story. So how is it that even with before Peter, because like before Peter disappeared, like Nkechi's saying, how did his Crohn's disease never become a problem while he was traveling with her?
It's like,
Makes
and I
it,
know
it makes
part
it
of
feel cheap.
it's, I know part of like the excuse one could say is that, which is based in truth, is that like Crohn's disease, you can have periods of remission
Yes.
and then you can have your flare ups. And so, arguably, because again, as we find out in this one chapter, he had surgery, he's currently in remission. Um, because the whole point of the surgery was to help him at least for a while. So it, arguably that's why it doesn't really affect him because he's already done his big one of trying to address it. But it's like it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I don't, I don't even know what to say. I'm just gonna go to the next comment.
Okay.
Katabasis is a pretentious romance novel that fails at what romance literature really is. You see, that's my big point. I think my pitch is Katabasis should have been a straight up romance.
Mm-hmm.
Katabasis should have been a romance where literally the two big points is obviously the characters falling in love and eventually getting together, but also exploring their toxic relationship with their advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Because a romance novel can still tackle serious issues. And
Mm-hmm.
part of the whole point of a romance novel is the characters helping each other grow and face the challenges of life together.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what a proper good romance does. It's not just kiss fall in love. It's like no, we're in this relationship to grow together and become better. So we could have had the topic of an abusive advisor in academia as one of the big things being explored in a romance novel. That's completely possible. And I feel like if we had just committed to that in here, this would have been so much better. We didn't need all the fucking magic that doesn't make any fucking sense and that we don't need to understand in the first place. We don't need so many little tangents of going on little different mini missions of shit. we we could have just focused on that because the strongest part of this for me and that hold the most intrigue is the tensions between the relationships in the with the characters. Those are the core of what's interesting here. Everything else is just extra. And correct. Like I feel I personally didn't see like the marketing that like that was like this is a love story. Um but it was brought up in like the author event that I went to with RF Kuang, that there was going to be some romance in the novel. And I'm like, Kuang, you just needed to commit your fervor of research into how do I craft a romance novel
Mm-hmm.
And then how do I combine that with my other interests? Because again, we can still be in academia and have a romance. We
Mhm.
can still challenge academia and be a romance. All of these things are possible. It's Kuang didn't do her part to deliver
Mhm.
upon that.
Mhm. Mhm. 100%. When at my author talk, it was brought up like this much, the romance part, which is what gave me the impression that romance is in it, but not that it was trying to be a romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I will say now, again, this goes back to me why I gave it 4.5 stars. Here's my issue as a reader with with dark books, I guess. Sometimes, and again, this is me trying to be as transparent as possible. Even if a book is really bad, I can acknowledge that it's really bad and be like, I'm a sucker for monsters. Natalie has experienced this with me before, where I'm like, in theory, this book is trash, but I like monsters. So, so when Alice, after we lost Peter, when she's in Dis, when she's traveling and I forgot what the other spirit's name, that he ends up finally like getting picked up to go on the boat or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. That man. Mm-hmm.
And she's working through her depression. I'm also a sucker for depressed bitches. So like that to me, I really enjoyed it. But I can also recognize I'm like, we didn't need any of this to be here. So that's a me thing.
Yeah. Cause like that's because my thing is like the first like 25% of this book, I was actually living my best life because I was finding Kuang hilarious. I was loving all the banter and bullshit between Peter and Alice. I was loving Alice's own bullshit. I was having a great time. And then we were going deeper into hell, and it was boring as hell. So then that next 25%, I was like, I could go to sleep right now. I don't care. And then we reached the halfway point where Steph started liking stuff, but then Peter was taken from me, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, I was already not caring, and then you kill Peter. My level of interest is now sub zero. I'm like, I'm not interested at all. And I mean, it doesn't help that I've been in my reading about depressed bitches era and I'm exhausted. Like I'm mentally taxed by it at this point. So in another story at a different point, would I have enjoyed those elements of this novel? Yes, because it was interesting. Again, if we were in a different novel at a different time. But as a part of this novel, no, no. I was dragging my feet through this. I We did not build this city for rock and roll. Okay, we did not. And so I just found the second half of this book just off. Frankly, for my personal taste, I'm like, I'm bored, I'm unengaged. And once again, if if my name wasn't on here, I would have DNF'd it. I would have just given up. I would have probably just skipped to the last chapter, be like, okay, Peter comes back. Let's see a little bit of that. Okay, ta-da! Yeah.
That was a big conversation. Yeah, shout out to Josh for
Yeah. Shout out to Josh.
this memes. That was a big thing during reading this as well, because like Natalie said, she had just come off of reading a bunch of books about depression and was like, not another depression. And I'm like, depression, hey, my people. So two different energies about that topic.
Yes. And this is coming from someone that, again, if people ask me what I'm interested in reading. It's romance, horror, and sad shit. Those are my big ones. But it's also like with the sad shit, I need my space. I'm like, I can't just consecutively do this. That's too draining on my psyche, on my literal psyche. I'm like, I can't. Um, so that was another down vote for me with this book when we went into that. No.
Can we talk about Helen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, I'll try to start us off, I think. So Alice, when so there's flashbacks in this, right? Also, I will say, like, the placement of flashbacks just didn't make sense to me. The whole structure of when we learn
This novel has a shit ton of structure issues.
is, yeah,
Structure who?
yeah.
Mess.
So when we finally get the flashback of her realizing, so Alice is very much not a feminist, and her one of the professors, Helen, who runs a like pro women's academia panel and does all these things, claims she is also very much a feminist. And so when Alice is finally at the point where she's like, I need to go to a woman for help because I'm dealing with the abuse of my male professor, she goes to Helen for advice. And Helen proves to us that Helen is actually not a feminist. She's just a second wave white feminist. So Helen's uses Alice's vulnerable moment as an opportunity to put in her face that Alice has all of this internalized misogyny and how much of a problem it is, which is true. She is extremely misogynist. Was actually very rude to other women in the programs that she's been through. She's upholding the patriarchy in the way that she acts, in the way that she tries to appease her professor, and the choices that she's made. But Helen, as an educator, has a fiduciary responsibility in that moment to do what is best for Alice. She is the person with the what's the word I'm looking for? She's supposed to be there for Alice's best interest, and instead sends Alice on a deeper spiral. And she was so wrong for that. I wanted to jump in this book and fight her.
Yeah, like that was one of the scenes that, frankly, I was glued to the pages reading it. But as an educator myself, I was like, this is repulsive. I'm like, this is actually disgusting. Because if Alice and Helen were peers, them having that confrontation would have been one thing. But in their current position where Alice is pursuing her PhD, and Helen, although not Alice's advisor, works at the university in that role, should never have spoken to Alice the way that she did. And I can completely understand Helen's frustrations because they do come from a real place. It's like Alice has spent this whole time looking down upon feminists and the work that feminists are doing, seeing them as, in essence, ridiculous and over exaggerating the issues. And let's just focus in on academia specifically, in academia. And so naturally, that's going to build resentment from the people who are trying to fight for better in academia, specifically when it comes to women's issues. But that does not mean that you get a student come into your office who is telling you, my advisor tried to take advantage of me, sexual advantage of me, and your response is to attack this person that's coming to you for help. That is not the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the solution to spit in Alice's face that, like, you can't really offer any resolution, because Helen just very assertively tells her, okay, so what do you want to do? You want
Mm-hmm.
to change to be my student? Do you want to report him? Do you want to do all these things? No, you don't, right? You don't want to do those. So what am I supposed to do? Like, again, as the professor here, you should just present the options to the student. What they decide to do with them is a completely separate matter.
Mm-hmm.
But just being straight up in that student's face, being like, you're not going to do that. You don't want to do that. So why the fuck are you wasting my time? Like, she might as well have said just that directly. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why the fuck are you wasting my time? Um,
Yeah, the
yeah,
victim
like
blaming.
the entire thing was incredibly unprofessional and entirely victim blaming. It came from such a victim blaming mentality. And so it was awful. Like, reading it, Angel legitimately was awful. I was
Yeah.
like, this is
And
everything about this is so wrong. Even if it satisfies that, you know, that little evil part of you that's like, oh, it would be so nice to say these things.
mhm,
It would be such a release, you know, of feelings. But it's like, you need to know the time and place, and this was neither the time nor the
place,
place.
correct. And I also want to add, because there it can also be seen as like, well, Helen did give her solutions, but Alice didn't want to take them. And it's like, but the way that she presented the solutions was still in a way that is victim blaming.
Yes.
And also, Alice does not understand how those solutions could lead to resolution. All she understands about them is that they go against her current ideologies of how academia is supposed to work in order for her to find success. So, as the woman who runs feminist organizations that is trying to uh, bring about change in academia, Helen should present those options and explain, I know that this is new, but here is why it's a possibility as a solution. Because we can't expect that just because someone finally has a realization that X thing is wrong, that they understand all the nuances around that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just bad work. As a feminist, it's just bad work as a feminist, as a professor, as all of these
All of it.
things.
All of it.
So yeah.
Yeah. She basically threw Alice back to the wolves or to the
Yeah.
shark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing was
And
free.
then it literally just leads to Alice spiraling deeper into things, literally her then just trying to solve the issue
Mm-hmm.
in the only way she can understand how, which is continuing to perpetuate the problems
Yes.
in academia. Um, so
Yeah. And that's Alice being scared of what. So Alice clearly went in there not knowing what she needed. And that's what most. Actually, I'm going to just make a safe bet and say everyone who goes in asking for help and advice many times doesn't know what they need, which is why they're asking in the first place.
yeah,
So for her to dismiss Alice and knowingly like put her into a potentially dangerous situation, nah, I wanted to take my shoe off and throw it at the book.
yeah, 100%. I mean, it was an excellent scene. I wouldn't take it out. It was amazing, but it's just good to talk about as well.
Yeah.
um, is there something else?
Oh, do we want to talk about the crypt keys?
I have a love-hate relationship with the crypt keys.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the most interesting part about them wasn't really what we went into.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we wanted to focus on magic, I actually found the crypt keys fascinating when they were alive.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of academics who also were interested in performative ways of using magic, not just magic as the solution to a problem, or again the way we more typically would research a problem or a thing in academia, but also for frankly fun.
Mhm.
I found them so interesting. I found that about them interesting.
In case you were like,
That's how little they were actually needed in the story.
yeah.
They are the ones who are hunting Alice and Peter while they're in hell, but then it turns out they weren't actually hunting for Alice and Peter. They were going after Elspeth, if I'm
Mhm.
remembering
Yeah.
correctly, because Elspeth had found the paradox plant, because I
Yeah.
can't remember what it's called anymore. So the crypt keys are those, and they are the ones who created the little bone dogs that
Mhm.
chase after people and attack people and whatnot.
Yeah.
um they interesting, but did we need them here at
Yeah.
all? No.
So again, this is another illustration of Steph's taste is, ooh, she gutted a saber-toothed tiger and used its bones as armor, and then they had a battle, and then they walked into the river, and that was kind of sad. And I was like, ooh, the crypt keys to me taste. I was interested. If I was an editor, why the fuck are they here? Cut that shit out. None of it was needed.
Listen, that whole part where Alice guts that tiger, that big kitty, I was like, oh, this is great. But that lasted like 5 seconds for
Yeah.
me. And then I was like, okay. And
Like, why? We didn't need it.
no,
No.
it was not necessary at
So
all.
many things not necessary.
Um,
I'm thinking about dropping my rating to a 4. I mean, okay, I'm still objectively it's bad. So take my rating with a grain of salt.
oh, I'm so dead. But yeah. Yeah.
Those are the thoughts.
Anything else to
No
mention?
reason this needed to be 600. How long is it?
Girl, an obscene amount of pages for where we ended up.
Ideal. No. I like the illustrations. That does nothing.
The pizza anus,
I guess.
541 pages. And for what? Review takeaways. Editor needed a stronger hand. Absolutely.
Yes.
And Kuang needed to commit to making this a romance under 400 pages. Ideally correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. And I honestly, I will say, like, because I said this in a TikTok review where I was like, this to me, the closest thing to this, if I had to categorize this as one thing, I feel like the closest thing is still a romance, because we have a happily ever after. And because her and Peter's relationship is like the crux that kept the story going.
Yeah.
It's like that. If I had to choose one category, that's what it would be. And I feel like because of what our Kuang has written in the past is so different, because the marketing was not clear on this. And also, like we said, who the fuck is this written for? I don't know that anybody would have been prepared.
The book itself doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
The book itself doesn't know what genre it is, and therefore what target audience it's trying to bring in.
Yeah. So I feel like already there's a lot of stigma, or not stigma, there's a lot of misconceptions about romance as a genre, I think. And so thinking about the reviews that I've seen of people who got arcs from this, who I see don't typically read romance, I'm not surprised that they rated it a little bit lower and that they didn't resonate with it. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but I definitely feel like that's part of it, is that just the bad marketing and a lack of commitment to actually making it a romance set this book up for failure. And it is still a failure, but like it significantly set itself up for failure.
Yeah. Agreed. So, should we talk about what we're reading next month?
Yes, I can't find my copy. You have yours?
Yes. So, for our fiction pick, we're reading When Javi Dumped Mari. I'm so excited to read this. Just a straight up romance to heal the soul.
Yes.
um but in essence it's like a second chance romance. Our two main characters used to be together, as the title implies. He dumped her, now she's engaged to be married, and he wants her back, so we're following how that will actually happen.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. The author event we went to for this was so fun.
Great.
It was
Yeah.
delightful. So
Is Mia Sosa's Dominican, I think?
I don't remember.
I could be wrong. I think she's Dominican.
I
I'm not mistaken.
don't think her author bio mentions it, so I don't know.
But yeah. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Excited. Let me see.
I kind of hope Kuang tries again in writing a romance whenever she researches romance literature as a whole with better marketing as well. Yes, I do agree. I do agree. I think the potential is there. It just wasn't
Oh,
to its
okay.
full.
She's Afro Puerto Rican.
Oh,
There we
nice.
go. There we go. Okay.
Amazing. All right.
Yay.
So thanks for joining us in our
Yay.
little rant about Katabasis.
Sprints on my channel in a few minutes.
Yes. So see you there.
Bye.
Bye.